Our next award is the Immigrant Spirit Award, which honors a first-generation immigrant who has demonstrated a lifelong commitment to professional business excellence and altruistic pursuits. The honorees' accomplishments and contributions have broad and substantial positive impact on the immigrant and larger community. We are delighted this year to honor Dr. Bruce Corrie with this award. Here are some highlights of his journey and accomplishments. Born in India to parents dedicated to public service, it is no surprise that Dr. Bruce Corrie spent his entire professional career in service to those without wealth and influence. Whilst his father, an architect in the army, built public structures like hospitals and schools, Dr. Corrie devotes his time to building wealth within disenfranchised communities. He also emulated his mother's calling as an educator when he became an economics professor at Concordia University in St. Paul, Minnesota, after earning his PhD in economics from Notre Dame University in 1988. A humble and brilliant man, Dr. Corrie credits many for helping him succeed when he arrived in the United States for graduate school with only $25. In the early years, he lived sparingly, not knowing if he would have the resources to complete his studies. But with the help of family back home and generous benefactors in the United States, he flourished. It was here that Dr. Corrie developed a model he called the Policy Mandala, a comprehensive strategy for economic development. This seminal work remains the foundation of his contributions as a professor and administrator at Concordia University and as a community economist. Over the last 3 decades, Dr. Corrie has imbued the initiatives he led and people he touched with his values of inclusion, optimism, and compassion. With a clear and incorruptible devotion to multiculturalism and a relentless drive to improve and learn, he is never singular in his motive and impact. Instead, he sets the tone for lifting every discourse, plan, and project to his highest purpose. When he initiated a program to support the successful graduation of minority students at Concordia, he involved faculty and staff from all sectors of the university who would be intricately involved in student success throughout the process from grant writing to program implementation. This heightened the understanding of faculty, staff, and administrators, as well as their engagement in meeting the academic, financial, and emotional needs of their students. Clear-eyed on the devastating ills of injustice, Dr. Corrie uses his extensive knowledge of the economic cost of racism to expand and refresh perspectives of power brokers with an infectious grace and optimism. This included the diversification of leadership and other economic inclusion strategies in city government when he served as the Director of Planning and Development for the City of St. Paul, and a blueprint to address racial economic disparities called the Minnesota Solution. He is also credited as a pioneer in the creative industry in the Twin Cities for offering a model of economic development in diverse low-income neighborhoods called cultural destinations, where cultural assets helps build wealth and community relationships. Widely renowned for these contributions, those closest to him know him as a family man, faithful son to his parents and extended family, devoted spouse to his wife Emma, herself an accomplished leader in state government. Together, they are proud parents and exemplary role models to their most important legacies, daughter Christina and son Sean. Nothing dampens Dr. Corrie's confidence in others or his sanguine views of life as he persistently seeks a path forward. Among the causes he champions, his deep knowledge and kindness rises above all social, religious, and political differences to influence the thinking and decisions of policymakers and community leaders from every sector. Always delivered with humility and grace, his views and counsel include concrete, informed solutions with specific strategies and steps for implementation. In the process, he has built a wide network of individuals and institutions who value and rely on his candor and insight. Considered by many to be the conscience of his campus and his community, Dr. Corrie's charisma comes not from showmanship, but from the substance of his ideas and beliefs. Endlessly resourceful and steadfast in advancing the lives of vulnerable populations, his knowledge, skills, and reputation extends beyond the United States. Dr. Corrie has been recognized and invited to lead and participate as a guest lecturer and collaborator on a variety of projects around the world. He has traveled to 27 countries across 6 continents. For his vision and work towards a compassionate and humane, wealth-generating infrastructure that creates access to a life of peace and plenty for all, and for his incomparable impact across diverse communities, Dr. Bruce Corrie is recipient of the 2021 Immigrant Spirit Award. Please welcome Dr. Corrie with your congratulations in the chat box as he receives this year's Immigrant Spirit Award. Congratulations, Dr. Corrie, on being the 2021 Immigrant Spirit Award recipient.
Thank you for celebrating the immigrant spirit today. It is that spirit that wanders into the unknown with a deep faith in the possible. It is that spirit that knows how to rebound when beaten by life's curveballs. It is that spirit that knows how to live with little as well as with plenty. It is that spirit that seeks to build in gratitude the community that we made home while not forgetting to build up the community we left behind. It is that spirit that looks at the old with the eyes of the child and sees new possibilities. It is the spirit that understands that whatever success we achieve stands on the shoulders of others, especially the oppressed groups within the communities we live in, who worked hard for equality, justice, and equity. So if you see that spirit, that immigrant spirit reflected in me today, I'm deeply honored. Thank you. So what was the experience of this immigrant spirit that you have chosen to honor? I came to the US from one of the most remote parts of India, where to study abroad was more than a fiction than a dream, as communications and networks of power and influence were too weak to open doors for opportunity. So what was the secret sauce? It was the generosity of my father, Sidney Corrie, an architect, who designed institutions for free that included buildings from colleges and hospitals and chapels. It was the fortitude of my mother, Dorothy Corrie, a teacher, who instilled in us the desire to be educated. My parents opened a door for me that angels entered and cleared a path for me to study at the University of Notre Dame. 2 strong angels in particular, Reverend Thomas Burroughs and Reverend Joe Callahan. So as a youth, I wanted to take on systems of oppression and open doors of opportunities for all, and so completed a doctorate in economic development at Notre Dame. My thesis documented the fact that the emperor has no clothes. Our policies, our actions, our decisions ultimately takes its toll on the most vulnerable, the child in poverty. So what do we do about it? The core strategy of racism and xenophobia is to deny a person's value, and in doing so, it becomes easier to exploit and oppress them. So we must challenge that falsehood and treat people as assets. My life's work in Minnesota has been to document and celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit of what I call the Alana communities, African, Latino, Asian, and Native American people. I use the word ethnic capital and immigrant capital to provide the context that the Alana people are assets to Minnesota and the nation. Alana people build the local economy as consumers, entrepreneurs, workers, taxpayers, cultural capital, and through civic engagement. A $1.4 trillion asset in Minnesota, which is bigger than the economy of Mexico. I've been blessed to be a pioneer with a few other in Minnesota in a blue ocean strategy, what we call cultural destinations. So what we do here, we take the stone that the builders rejected, the value, the cultural assets of people, and make it the cornerstone. So in a cultural destination, you'll see a business infused with cultural assets that offers this experience to a visitor. And the visitor enjoys that experience, the business grows in wealth. The community at large is affirmed that their values are celebrated by all, and it's an empowering strategy in diverse low-income communities. So for example, during the pandemic, we organized the Taste of the World tour, where people could go to restaurants from Mexico, Somalia, Burma, India, Thailand, and experience those cultures. At the same time, it helped those businesses during a very critical time in their life. And so wealth building in itself is not enough. People also need to be empowered to liberate from many social, emotional, material, and spiritual forces that blunts their pathways to success. Authentic human liberation is needed for permanent change, and that was one of the fundamental insights through this life journey. And so my work as a community economist proved that data empowers. The data I produced on the economic contributions of immigrants and minorities have been effectively used to challenge falsehoods and xenophobia time and time again as different communities emerged as scapegoats. I remember a mother sharing when the Muslim community was under great stress a few years ago, and she shared how she shared the data of a report we did on the economic contribution of African immigrants and told her daughter to put her head up because she is offering much of value to Minnesota. And this past few months, I've been invited by the leadership of the Minnesota House Legislature, very powerful movement on their part to bring equity and diversity and inclusion into the heart of what they're doing. And so I presented on the economic cost of racism that Minnesota, it costs the Atlanta communities about $287 billion in assets. And this $1.4 trillion asset could be a very powerful engine for economic growth in Minnesota that'll benefit everybody. But in order to do that, we need to move from our old way of thinking of scattered investments and begin to offer a comprehensive set of wealth-building tools and infrastructure for success. So thank you, IEUSA, Wamang Mua, Catherine, San, Jean Jerjalou, Jane Leonard, Dr. Cheryl Chapman, and others who are honoring me. Thanks to Concordia University, where as a professor of economics, I can blend work and community seamlessly. Thanks to my wife, Emma, children, Christina and Sean, for enabling this work while we live our life as a family. Thanks to my extended family and friends, and I also want to express my indebtedness to the African Americans and Native Americans and others who worked very hard to free the shackles of oppression and enable my success. What I offer back in return through my life's work is but a small gesture of eternal gratitude to the many who have kindled this immigrant spirit. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Corrie, for your dedication and your inclusive and systemic approach to address the needs of the immigrant business community.